Robert Spencer, is not so much known as a super scholarly or literary genius sort of author, but as a propaganda pusher, someone who's intolerant of his intolerance. His intolerance for anything that criticizes war crimes done by the West or in countries, by abuses of their prison systems, or other government factors, by abuses of the Christian and Jewish clergy. He's intolerant of the idea that people would have a different opinion. His arguments are a bit harder to refute than a lot of things because he actually kind of sort of gives numbers and tries to get you to think about references that don't quite support that Islam that doesn't have any penalty for blasphemy, any penalty for apostasy or disbelief in terms of what humans are allowed to implement, is somehow the most intolerant religion. You do find people that were programmed by certain things in the media, or certain things from colonial rule, or certain things from the Crusades that were picked up that weren't supported by the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. And we're not saying here that any of these things didn't happen. Some of their motivations weren't quite as people say. And rather than being strict in religion, whether that's beliefs or practices of some sort, it's actually sort of the opposite. It's the people you're finding that are, more than accidentally missing prayers, like completely neglecting, like praying once a week or once a year or something. People who are often drinking and doing even worse things. Those are the people who get swept up into these terrorist movements and stuff like that. So that's out the window. Yes, Muhammad is a historical figure. He's not one of these people who try to pretend that he's not, or try to pretend that the Islamic system of narratives in the initial centuries was better scrutinized than almost any period of American history. We are not going to fix the issue of the classist civilizations that they're trying to push upon us by having those of different nations say that they don't care what people believe or do, or that we have them mimic any one particular material culture or psychology. We need freedom of that. So this person saying the religions that allow different material culture and different psychology, whether to practice their religion and they accept it that way, or they accept that others aren't going to accept what they do. So his claiming they're intolerant is quite the opposite. Another bait and switch there. Yes, there were wars, but Muhammad never allowed anybody to be fought because they were ruled by a woman, or they were ruled by Christians or Jews or something. Christians and Jews in his community that accepted an M in what used to be Yathrib. These people did not have to pay the jizya. They didn't, nobody was forced to convert. Eventually people generally did convert, but at first it was just a majority of people that thought, this guy's a good arbitrator. We don't believe in him as a prophet, but, we can't think of a better option. So that's one of the things that happened there. Some forced marriage happened in other communities later, but In Muhammad's community, there wasn't any of that, so that's kind of out the window. Muhammad having visions wasn't the reason why they conquered during his life or any other. I mean, not in the way of, oh, well, I've had a vision about the place, so we have a right to conquer the place. No, that's out the window. Just like the division of the Ishmaelites from the Israelites or any of the other Abrahamic tribes, Islam doesn't care about that. Your ancestry is your nationality, whether you were a slave or not. It's not. It doesn't give you the spiritual status. It's what you're doing with what you have now. People like this will ignore grading and different versions, or perhaps versions that are used to compile and have more pretty much the whole picture of an issue of the narrations. So that's one issue that he has there, that any close look into any of his work, you're going to find that's, or anybody criticizing Islam really, and they'll also say, well, my personal desires or whatnot don't fit in with this. And, well, if that's true, that's true. But these prophetic figures, these mystics, what happened with them was they were, their desires were tempered. It wasn't that they denied their desires. Their desires were put into a spiritual context upon spiritual principles. And they did have to follow the same ethics that they asked the other people to follow.